Hello dear students, today we will be continuing with the chapter Changing Cultural Traditions, chapter 7, lecture 3. Now, till yesterday we have already understood about the term which changed the entire socio-economic and psychological, physiological mindset of the people of Europe, where the Renaissance that took place, and then there was realism and humanism which was taking over. Now, there was a sudden change in the churches as well, that the Protestant Reformation, it is actually a movement which started in 15th and 16th century to reform the Christian religion and excesses of the churches. Now this resulted in a split in Christianity and succession of large number of countries from the Roman Catholic Church and establishment of national churches in those countries. Now these national churches were fully dependent in the papal authority. Now there was a man who is very world famous known as Martin Luther. I think you all have heard about him. Martin Luther was a young German monk and one of the greatest exponent of reform of the Catholic Church. He opposed the excesses of the church and argued that a person did not need a priest to establish contact with the God, and his efforts led to a movement called the Protestant Reformation. The movement, I repeat, is known as Protestant Reformation and the founding of the Protestant religion. So now the Christianity has got splitted up in two parts. One is the Catholic and another is the Protestant. Now in the meantime, there were many people, slowly we will be learning about them, and very, very important, who played a vital role in the changing mindset of the European countries. Number one I can talk about is Petrarch. He was a great Renaissance poet of Italy, and he is also called the first humanist, and he was a great lover of classical Latin and did much to renew the interest in the works of Virgil, Cicero and other Roman writers. So what was his name? He was Petrarch. Now I would also like to talk about Raphael. Raphael was a great artist of Renaissance period in Italy. Very much like Michelangelo, he was a versatile genius. He was a renowned painter, poet, sculptor and architect. The lifelike charm of his painting, I think you all have seen, is Madonna, has made it one of the world's famous, or one of the world's masterpiece, you can say. Previously I have already spoken about Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci was a Renaissance man, and with amazing range of interest from not only art and architecture, but from botany and anatomy to mathematics and art. We have already spoken about his paintings like The Last Supper and Mona Lisa. These are the masterpieces of art, and he signed his name as Leonardo da Vinci, disciple of experiment. I would also like to talk about Michelangelo. Michelangelo, as a Renaissance man, was skilled equally as a painter, sculptor and architect. He is immortalized by the ceiling. I think it is already given in your book, and you can Google out also that the painting of the ceiling of Pope in the Sistine Chapel, the sculpture called the Pietà. This is a very, very famous sculpture, and his design of the dome of St. Peter's Church, which is already given in the book, both of these things are in Rome. I would like to talk about the next person is Thomas More. Thomas More, he was a Christian humanist in England, and he was the man who criticized the Catholic Church for its greed and excesses against the common man. And his literary masterpiece is one of the world famous work, that is Utopia, ridiculed the malpractices of the contemporary society. Then there is another person named as Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli was regarded as the father of modern political science, and his famous work, The Prince, gives a deep insight on human nature. The most powerful motive of Machiavelli saw as the incentive for every human action is self-interest. Unless and until you are having interest in yourself, you cannot input into the society. There is another famous man called Donatello. Donatello, he was a great sculptor of Renaissance period, and he broke new ground with his lifelike statues. So all these people were working into the making of New Europe, coming out from the black hole. And in the meantime, there was Johannes Gutenberg. I think you have heard this name, the German person who made the first printing press. The first book that he printed with the first printing press was a Bible, and he made almost 150 copies of this Bible. The printing press revolutionized the technology of printing. And as you know, that earlier books were manuscripts because they were all handwritten. Or we have studied earlier that how the clay models were made, and the block printing of the books were done with the printing press. But now when the printing press came into being, books became available to everyone, and it was possible to buy them also. Hence, there was a change, because now the students did not have to depend solely on a lecture notes, and the ideas, opinions moved more rapidly and widely from one place to another, because the books were movable. They could be, sent from one place to another, and it was made possible for the individuals to read books. And since they became affordable and available, so many people were involved into reading books, and they developed a reading habit also, and this reading habit developed an idea of reading people. The availability of books was a significant factor in the spread of humanist culture in Italy, because these books made many things available and approachable for the people. Now, before I conclude, I would also like to talk about or discuss about the Protestant Reformation and how Renaissance and humanism impacted Christianity. So in Italy, Renaissance, with its focus on classical, as I said, Roman text, led to individualism and questioning of religious dogmas for professional scholars. And in Northern Europe, humanism attracted many members of the church. They called on Christians to practice religion in the way it was laid down in ancient text, discarding the rituals and returning to the earlier pristine form. And slowly there was a radical new view of human beings as free and rational agents. Yesterday I have already told you about what is rationalism. Rationalism means having a question in mind, that if someone is telling you that the water or the sea is green or the river is blue, so you must ask why it is not red, why it is not white. So there should be a question. So if someone is telling you about something, so there should be a question in mind that why it is so and how is it happening. So that is the rational thought which was, which evoked the senses of the people during that time. And Christian humanist, as I just now told you, someone like Thomas More in England and other people, they also started talking about this rationalism. Now with the spread of education, because books were available, universities got opened, law was being studied through universities, and printed copies of the Bible, which was available in vernacular, or the religious learning reached the common man. Now the authority of the church began to questioned, and peasants rebelled against the taxes and extortions of the church. Many princes, they found churches' interferences, cumbersome. So humanist scholars argument that the donation of the Constantine, which was the basis of clergy's claim to judicial and fiscal powers, was fabricated, encouraged the princes. And there was a strongest attack on the Catholic Church, and papacy was led by Martin Luther. Just now I told you he was a monk, and he was asked by his followers to have complete faith in God. For faith alone, as he said, that only the faith can guide them to the right life and entry into heaven. So this movement, which I told you just now, is called as the Protestant Reformation, led to the churches in Germany and Switzerland breaking their connection with the Pope and the Catholic Church. In Switzerland also, Luther's ideas were popularized, and later many people backed him up, and then he was there for the merchants also for the reformers, and had greater popular appeal in towns which were in the rural areas, and the Catholic Church managed to retain its influence. There are other German reformers also. They blended the ideas of salvation with the end of all forms of social oppression. They said that since God has created all people equal, so they were not expected to pay taxes, because I think you can recall in the chapter 3 orders what we have studied, that because there were 3 orders in the society, and because the topmost order was occupied by the clergies and the church related people, so they always tried to spread on this a kind of a terror that if you are not paying the church, the God will be angry with you, and because you belong to the third order, so you all are only bound to pay the church. So this idea was shackled by the these scholars and these new people, the monk like Martin Luther, who came up, and they said that since God has created all people equal, okay, so these third order people, or the peasants, they were not expected to pay taxes and had the right to choose their priest, and this appealed to the peasants oppressed by the feudalism. And then there were many reformation which impacted the Christianity differently in different parts. So there was before I conclude, just want to tell you that Christianity got divided into 2 parts. One is the Catholic version, and the new version which came up was the Protestant version. So I'm concluding the chapter right now, and I will be ending up the chapter in my next lecture, where we are going to talk about the Copernicus theory and science. How did science affected the entire Renaissance period? Thank you so much, children. Have a nice day.